put up your chat open, and you can always text us, ask all the questions which you have, and we'll be very happy to take up, a few questions on that. Okay, so let me start this. Okay. Okay, I believe someone is having problem regarding joining. Let me share with you guys a direct link. You can ask people to join with this link, and if people are still not able to join, you can ask them to get onto the YouTube. So we are also live on YouTube, so probably people can join on the YouTube if they are not able to join in Zoom by any chance. Let's not stop them. Okay, perfect. We are all set. Yep. Okay, guys. So let's start the session. Hello, good evening, everyone, to a wonderful weekend. And thank you for taking your time and coming out on the weekend to probably educate yourself and, share the knowledge. So first of all, welcome Rhythima. Rhythima is one of the renowned speakers. She has been with us like previously also on a couple of panels also, and she is an IIT Bombay alumnus, if I'm correct. And she is currently studying her PhD in ETH Zurich. She also runs her startup, so she'll definitely talk about her entrepreneurial instincts and journey. And to talk about Foreign Admits, it's an international study abroad mentorship platform. We are basically trying to become an unconsultant in this whole education consulting industry and trying to connect directly all of the aspirants with the mentors themselves so that you can get a first hand experience of how it feels, how it looks, and how the journey is when you're planning for your international career or international education journey. So check out foreignadmins.com. We have a lot of scholarships, a lot of events going on. If you need any guidance, you can always speak to a mentor. There are like 200 plus mentors on the platform, and the host is Nikhil Jain. So I started this journey when I was graduating from IIT BHU. I didn't had a good mentor to guide me for my PhD, but fortunately, I was blessed with a good alumni network. They kind of helped me out. But a lot of students, they don't get a good alumni network, or they're not getting right support even on LinkedIn. So the platform basically helps you to get the right support instantaneously without you even exploring or wasting your time onto it. So yeah, having said that, today's session is all about higher education, study abroad opportunities from an entrepreneur's lens or viewpoint. So as we see a lot of women entrepreneurs aspirants and study abroad aspirants on the group. So I'll not say guys, I'll say girls. Definitely, put up all the questions, all the doubts, all the queries. Don't shy away. Rhythm is an amazing speaker, and she has been really helpful in the previous sessions also with all the participants. And she can cover a lot of different lenses, not just from an IIT perspective, but also from other college perspectives also, that how it the journey happens. Okay. So before continuing to the session, let me ask Rhythima to basically talk about her journey. Where does she come from in India? What did she study in India, and then what made her to study abroad, and the follow on next.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil, for the platform again and inviting me. I'm very excited to be here. It's nice to always share and also learn at the same time from everybody. So I hope there is not a lot of disturbance from my side, right? It's okay. Yeah, good. So the first thing, I think at the age of 17, I joined IIT and as a very gooey-eyed um, aspirant to make a big change in the world as an engineer. So, and reality struck me at IIT Bombay that, okay, it's still just an engineering course where there is a lot to learn, and it doesn't just like, if you become an engineer, it doesn't mean that you are just going to make a difference right away. So, why I thought about making a difference right from when I joined was, so I grew up in Indore. It's a small town in Madhya Pradesh, but when I was growing up, I grew up in a very uh, let's say comfortable setting in a very nice scientific environment. My parents are working at the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, and I was always that's why interested in sciences and so. But as soon as I came to Mumbai, I saw that the world was really very different. As I joined IIT Bombay, I saw that I could see a lot of social issues to a lot of problems generally adjusting yourself in a big city, and reality struck me, and that's where I realized that I didn't want to just do engineering in any sort. I wanted to do a lot of curriculums and also extracurricular activities and take up other things. So while I was at IIT in mechanical engineering, I also started working with the Formula Student Racing team to just gain some hands-on skills, but also started working on some social service projects. For example, I started my own small organization there with the NSS, the National Social Services, where we took the engineering students from the bachelors to villages where we would work on rural electrification related or rural water distribution related problems. So this was a program which we started on our own. It was just a team of 3, and it grew to a team of 30 people within a year. And so since then, entrepreneurship was something which really stuck in my mind, where I wanted to make work on entrepreneurship with an impact. And yeah, so yes, exactly. And then after that, um, um, when I was working on my engineering, I realized there is a gap between engineering and in making an impact in the society. And that's where I decided that I wanted to apply for a master's in something which can train me to make this impact. And that's why I applied for a master's in policy analysis, which is not something which many people know about. So it's called engineering and policy analysis, where we work on developing multiple policies for industries and for impact oriented, like for energy policies, for environmental related policies, for social policies, and so on. But you do a lot of simulation, statistical analysis, and a lot of mathematical uh, and social exercises as well, curriculum related exercises as well. After that, when I was working on this, I also worked on at the same time on my thesis, which was in rural electrification for India. And that's where, with 2 more master thesis students, 3 of us started a startup called Energy Bazaar, which is a peer-to-peer energy sharing platform. What it means is, for example, if I have a solar panel at my home rooftop, I can share it with the another neighbor. And this is where we launched Energy Bazaar. And at the same time, I realized that I still wanted to understand more, and there were a lot of technical issues which we are still dealing with while employing a pilot, because it's a very complicated project, and it requires a lot of interdisciplinary, like right from embedded engineers to social policymakers to economists to data scientists, to everyone. So we need a very interdisciplinary team and a lot of active people working on the ground. And that's why this project is still ongoing. And that's when I realized that I wanted to work a little bit more on it, research more, and then that's when I applied for a PhD as well at ETH Zurich. So I moved from Netherlands, where I did my policy analysis masters, to ETH Zurich in Switzerland. While I was doing my masters in Netherlands, I also applied for second masters at the same time and worked in data science. So I did two masters there. And now I'm in ETH Zurich doing my PhD and parallelly also working on my startup. At the same time, I have an organization which works on the social entrepreneurship aspect in combating social equity and so. So this is my journey till now, and yeah, that's it.
Interesting. So there are so many interesting pointers. I was just noting down and sharing the notes with the
Mhm.
students. So you started or you got involved with a startup called Energy Bazaar, okay, and that
Mhm.
was, I believe, after your first masters or second masters.
So it was so both of my masters were on the same topic of rural electrification, and like I mean my master thesis. So it was a thesis of almost more than a year, and during this time I was combining the work from both these theses, and the product was finally in the form of Energy Bazaar while combining two other master theses. So it's a really research project which is still ongoing actually.
Interesting. So a thesis leading to a kind of a product or
Mhm.
a solution. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. So a pointer for all of the people, like if you're doing your bachelor's or master's thesis, there is a possibility that you can probably venture your own startup into what you're solving the problem. So what was the experience when you were studying? So which college, I didn't get to hear properly, like
Oh,
which
I'm
college did
sorry.
you studied in your masters and what is the field that you studied in your masters?
Mhm. So yeah, sorry, I missed that. So I applied for two master programs. One was in University College of London, but it was a 1 year program, and that's why I didn't go for it because I wanted to do a full thesis. And the another was the masters in TU Delft, and it was called Engineering and Policy Analysis. So this is a combination of, as I mentioned, engineering skills or basically statistical and mathematical skills with um, information related to economics and policy design and so on. And yeah, so this was the master's TU Delft, Delft University of Technology in Netherlands.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. TU Delft is one of the top-notch universities in Europe and specifically in Netherlands. So just let us know a little bit more about like mechanical to engineering and policy.
Mm-hmm.
How was the mindset changed, and how did you ended up like university is going to accept me for this kind of a jump, because
Mm-hmm.
mechanical engineering and engineering and policy analysis are not exactly the on alignment. So how did you
Mm-hmm.
plan for your applications? What made you give a conviction that yes, there is a hope that you can shift your field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for the question. So actually, it was not very straightforward, definitely, and I still have to convince people that it's something possible because people always hesitate to change their fields, and I completely understand. So from mechanical engineering, it was not a very clear jump, but if you look into engineering policy analysis, as I mentioned, it was not public policy making. It is not an MA. It is still an MSc. So it was still related to sciences and technology, and because there were many projects or industries which were in supply chain where these engineering policy analysis is also applicable. So we do a lot of optimization, which is something called operations research. Maybe if there are engineers here, they might know about it. So there are many processes which are done for making industries better or making the policies in industries efficient. This is also taught in engineering and policy analysis. So I looked into these courses before applying. So I really went on their website and looked into what are the courses which they teach. And as per that, I saw which of the courses which I had learned could fit into this program. I could say that, okay, I have some experience related to this courses. But when you're applying, you have to be also very clear and honest about the fact that actually it's not always that um, you know everything and you are aiming to learn as well from all of this. So you have to be open and very honest in telling that I know a little bit about, let's say, operation research, or I have a background in engineering and statistical methods, but I look forward to apply this in a field which I don't have any idea about, and I'm just very passionate to learn about. So for me, it was very clear through my projects, the extracurricular projects that I did. For example, the rural development project, which I did during IT, which was completely not related to my bachelor's, but something extra which I did. I could tell them that I'm motivated to do this, and because I've shown it through my extracurriculars, and I have a little bit of skills which can take me towards that, and your course will help me really achieve that in a very efficient way. So it's very important to show them the story, or be very clear with your own motivation why you want to do this change. And once you are really match it with the program which they provide, and I think that helps for the application. But I can definitely say it's not very straightforward and easy. It's not like going from mechanical engineering bachelor's to mechanical engineering masters, which is quite straightforward, where your transcript says everything. So yeah, I think internships or other experiences help here a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. I would stop here and I'm gonna, because the next question is predominantly on this only.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how should a student choose a career track? You know, if you're continuing the same career track or if you're changing it, what's
Mm-hmm.
the mindset that you believe should be there if you're picking a career track?
Hmm. So, so this might sound very cliche, but I mean, for me, it's coming from personal experience. For me, it was very clear that I wanted to be in a career where I feel passionate about every day. So if I wake up, I don't want to feel like, why am I doing this? I mean, it's not, it still happens. I wouldn't say that it sometimes you're not very happy with what you're doing, but I didn't want this to be a prolonged feeling for all the time. So I think this is possible if you are very clear about, again, as I mentioned, like if you're questioning the career which you are in every time, and just ask yourself, like, is it a good track that I'm on, or am I here just because I'm supposed to be here? But at the same time, I can definitely understand you have to look into the opportunities in the market. So I would not say that just uh, you have to be a little balanced about it. So how I chose it, I was really passionate to work on social development, for example, but I knew just working in an NGO sector would not give me that amount of fulfillment. And that's why I was looking into something which also had career prospects. For example, policy analysis in general has a lot of career prospects everywhere in the world, because you can be a consultant in many companies after you have done these courses. So that's why I chose, rather to do a public policy masters, I chose to do policy analysis. So, and it also was a good stepping stone to, if I wanted to enter public policy as well. From an engineering background, it was a good stepping stone to go there. So I chose something which was a good transition to where I wanted to be, but at the same time looking in the market what's available, so that I don't remain unemployed while I also pursue something I enjoy. So yeah, this is how it could be. Are you specifically asking for some comments here, or?
No, I was just asking the whole philosophy of choosing a particular career because a lot of
Mm,
people get confused that if I'm choosing this career, there is hardly any pay.
mm,
And what do I keep in my career choice so that
mm,
I can get paid also, and at the same time, I can pursue my passion. So
mm.
that at the same time thing is a very difficult choice
It
to
is.
make. Sometimes, from my understanding, is like, yeah, the career choices that one picks up may not give upfront results, like
Mm,
one of the hottest career choices that are available in the market. But then in the long term, do you enjoy it, and there is pay on this? So
mm,
let's understand a little bit in details about this. So when you were deciding to shift from one career choice to another, which is, I feel, 80% of the Indian graduates face through that, because
mm,
they end up doing an engineering or a commerce or a economics bachelor's
mm,
without having proper understanding. Then they kind of figure it out what they want to do, the next step.
mm,
So, how do one prepare for such kind of a profile jump? What are the things that one should look at to prepare that if I want to get into that kind of an industry or
mm,
different kind of a profile, what are the elements should I prepare for? And what could be an ideal time if someone realizes that in the first or second year of their
mm.
engineering?
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is still very subjective, but at the same time, I could say that it would be important. Let's answer it in the reverse order when you ask about the timing. So I think it's important if you're in the third or fourth year. By I think the end of third year, you're already applying for jobs or your next. Where do you want to end up next? Do you want to apply for masters? Do you want to take a job? Do you want to completely switch your career, switch your, let's say, subjects or major? So I think by third year end, it becomes quite crucial that you start at least thinking about it and hopefully start also applying in this direction. So, but if you are already, I don't want to stress people who are not, who are already in their fourth year to feel that, okay, now the time is gone. It's not true. I mean, obviously, also after you have taken up the next opportunity, there is always a chance to make a transition. So I would not discourage that, but this is just an optimum time, I think. So I realized it somewhere around the end of second year, and that's when I felt like the engineering degree was not something I was fulfilled with. And that's when I started taking a lot of but I started participating in a lot of events. So as a student, I think you get access to a lot of student activities, student boards, student communities, networks, events which happen all across different universities. So don't just stick to your own university. If you live in a city, look at what are the events going on in other university. If you are, let's say, in an engineering university and you are interested in arts, then just look for that college or the university which is specialized in arts. If they have a career event going on, if they have some form of cultural program or cultural events going on, just go there and try to network with people, try to understand um, what are their type of career subjects look like. So I think this is something which we realize very later in our careers, that network is very important, and we don't start building it right in our bachelor's. And I completely encourage to do that right from the start. And the bigger or the diverse, I wouldn't say bigger, but the more diverse your network is, the better it is, because you come to know about multiple opportunities everywhere. So attending right from, let's say, technical events. So we have something called tech fests, or if you are into technology, if you are into, as I mentioned, into arts or something like cultures, then you can attend events like that. There are also a lot of career events which are open nowadays. I see there are a lot of, for example, for entrepreneurs who are interested here, there are a lot of entrepreneurial summits which go on. There are which are organized even by cities. Sometimes there are sometimes open events which go on. Sometimes you have to also pay, and I would not shy away from investing in once in a while, even if it's an entry. As a student, you will sometimes get also lower discounted tickets. So I would say take part in a lot of competitions, try to get to meet a lot. So I did that a lot. I participated in, for example, the first step where I got into the social sector was through, there was a competition arranged by the Harvard Business School, um, and they were asking for debaters and something, and it was completely something I just went for, and that opened up the platform to meet more people, to know more events which were happening outside the university in different parts of the world. So I think that helps a lot to really jump into where you want to um, where you want to head towards. But also, I think internships, as I mentioned briefly, taking some part-time jobs, not jobs, I would say, but part-time activities or internships. Sometimes they're unpaid, so I wouldn't encourage going for unpaid internships. But at the same time, if you're a student, I think it's okay to get an experience because you also have a lot to learn. So just you can um, start applying for the organizations you are interested in on, and the skills you want to learn from. Just start searching for those companies and just apply for them. Just try to have a conversation through LinkedIn or something on with the HR, that are there any positions. Even I'm open for some unpaid internships, for example, just to grow your network and know more about that fields.
Interesting. So, okay, now let's understand, why abroad. That's one of the big questions that people struggle with, though we are into abroad, but then
Mhm.
idea is to first understand the education system and then make a conscious choice. So when you were planning for education abroad, like what's a bigger difference that you see uh, coming from IIT Bombay and then studying at Delft, and overall holistic changes that you have observed? And if you had to do in India, what could have been your choices, if at all?
Mm-hmm. So as I also said in one of the last discussions, I guess that actually I really see a huge difference in how education is structured in India and in abroad. So I really see the focus of the education here is on the education, which means I'm not discouraging. I think I also learned a lot while being in IIT and learning in India, no doubt about it. But I always felt the pressure to do education to achieve a job out of it or achieve the next career option out of it. What's different here is I clearly feel that here the education is really focused on learning. The focus is really that you get a lot of practical assignments, you get a lot of practical learning experience. It could be that because I also changed my fields that I saw that more. So I cannot really separate those both things. Like, was it just the difference due to this shift in the field, or was it also due to the shift in the country? But I definitely see throughout that there is a lot more practical learning approach here, which is really focused on making sure that students learn out of the entire experience. And that's why I really felt this was a very good choice if you want to do education. It was very worth to do it abroad and learn outside. Also, I see the second major aspect is you learn a lot about different cultures, you meet a lot of different people, you get to be a very good team player, which is definitely possible in India. But I think because the amount of diversity is so huge here, so in TU Delft we had more than 100 countries students, so I think that helps a lot. So I think that gives a lot of experience and helps you to really build your personality more than just the education, and really prepares you well for the your next step in your career. So I would definitely encourage it, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So let's understand a little bit more towards your, first master's to second master's. How was that journey? And then towards your startup journey, you definitely said
Mm.
that you started a venture, but then what triggered you to convert your project into a venture idea?
Mm. So, as I mentioned from the start, I really wanted to work on something very impact oriented. So, I really wanted to develop something at the end of. I just didn't want to study and leave it as a thesis, which I really enjoyed. But at the same time, I really wanted to take that experience and put it into something which is more concrete. And I saw it was possible through a startup. Um, so because I was in a very technical university and TU Delft, so this is also one of the aspects about abroad versus India. TU Delft, for example, provides a lot of opportunities, like really a lot of opportunities and support if you want to convert your ideas into startups. So there are incubators right in the university which helps you pitch. They give you courses, free courses to learn from. There is a lot of material available, and this helped me to do it very easily, I guess. I also got this opportunity at IT, but I think it was still not that approachable or easy as it was at TU Delft. So that helped me to also launch it, and that also gave me an idea that it is possible. And also I got the other co-founders were very much interested in it, so I think having a team also helped a lot. But majorly the reason was that I was really I wanted to work on an impact, and I wanted to work on impact based in India. So I developed the product there, but I did a lot of field trips back home here. So I was traveling for 3 months already while doing my thesis here. Sorry, in India. And I visited different places. I visited different projects, the solar electrification projects there in rural parts of India. And then I finished the final thesis while compiling it with my studies from India and working on the startup at the same time. So this was obviously it took a lot more time, and it was not it couldn't be finalized during the thesis time, but um, after the thesis also we gave 6 to 7 months to launch the first proof of concept, so the software proof of concept for it. Yeah.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about the ecosystem of startups out there. Like, how
Mhm.
supportive was the ecosystem? How did you manage it? Did you get any kind of in kind or financial support also, or how was the mentorship around it?
Yeah.
Was the encouraging environment or not? So how is the whole environment out there?
Hmm. So it's definitely, as I mentioned, it's definitely very supportive. For We have a lot of access to a lot of grants. So, for example, you could apply to 15,000 euros, which is like €1 is around $70. Sorry, €1 is around 70 INR. So, so accordingly, so we could apply for a lot of funds through the first funding which we got was something called Global Research Fund, and we got it directly through the university because we just applied it with the PhD student who was working on a very similar topic, and we could do a collaboration of a research and an industry where we were the industry. So this helped us to get some people on board and help us in developing the first proof of concept as well. So I think that's why the ecosystem being in university was super helpful. If you go out of universities, it becomes a little more difficult in the sense that you have to pitch yourself. So it's basically a competitive market. So that becomes still difficult, but at the same time, it's supportive if you are coming. So, for example, if they know that your project was a TU Delft thesis, the investors are very much interested to have a look, and they really put you on your first list to listen to your pitches. So I think that helps a lot. So just knowing that it's a product of a thesis really brings on a very good aspect to it. And also the incubator, the Yes Delft incubator in TU Delft was also very supportive and generally to provide space and so on. So I think generally that's why it's easy. There's also the Tinker Lab, we didn't have a hardware product, but if we had, there are possibilities to book devices and really make your product as well there, and for free, just because you're a student, they allow you to experiment and make your own products. So I think that's why it's very helpful if you are working during your thesis as a student to work on these things together.
Interesting. And that's something is pretty much, I would say, not
Hmm.
tried and tested in the Indian conditions, where
Exactly.
building your thesis into a product or project is something, from at least from my experience, I might be biased here, is very difficult. Your BTech project or the MTech project leading to a product. But that's definitely a point that you made it very clear that if a product comes out of your thesis, the investors' lens kind of widen for you, and you
Hmm.
kind of have a little bit more preference into that. Okay, let's understand from a little bit more towards the student life perspective. A lot of people have different opinions about Europe as an education destination is considered. Some people might have a biased opinion that it's like a free education. Some people might have an opinion that's very expensive as an
Hmm.
education. So, what's your take on that, specifically, let's say for Netherlands, because you spent considerable
Hmm.
amount of time there, and how did you able to manage your finances out there?
Hmm. So, Netherlands education is expensive. I would definitely say that for masters. If you compare in the entire Europe, Netherlands does have a lot of cost. It's around, I think, 18 lakhs per for the entire year. I'm not very sure. I'm sorry. This is something we'll have to check on the website of TU Delft. But it's not cheap for sure. But at the same time, there are universities in Europe, like in Germany, in Switzerland. There is no tuition fee, so the expense comes mostly due to um, the tuition fees, which is very high, and it is not there in Germany and Switzerland, as far as my knowledge is concerned. There are also some good universities, though, in Sweden, in Denmark, and so on, if you are in technical spheres. Um, So you will have to really check what is good for you, and then are you ready to take a loan, or are you not. So usually people, so how I have seen, when it comes to managing finances, there are multiple ways. One is obviously to go through the scholarship paths. So the first thing is the universities themselves provide scholarships, but then there are also country-wide scholarships. So countries or the Netherlands government also provided scholarships to incoming students. There is something similar with Germany as well. So you have to really look for which country are you applying for, and are there more open scholarships there. So that is the first thing. Also, the scholarships are in multiple ways. So, for example, I entered through a scholarship program, and I got a faculty scholarship. So my faculty was providing scholarships, and which waived off my tuition fee. And then I got another scholarship from the government, which paid off my living expenses. So so I had to apply for multiple scholarships. Though some people, for example, some of my friends directly got a full scholarship where everything was covered in with their living expenses. Some didn't get a scholarship, so they applied for a loan, and then they were yeah, so they applied for a loan, and then they take a job um, after their education to pay off those loans. And it's possible, and depends on how much you have taken and what is your job or what is your field. So there are multiple ways through which it is done. The ways, if you the scholarships are limited, unfortunately, especially in Netherlands, as I've seen. But there are ways through it. The one of the ways is that you can, the tuition fee is mandatory, so you will have to pay, but you can save on the living expenses, which is not cheap as well. So for the living expenses, you can take TA ships. For example, unlike US, in US you can always apply for um, teaching assistantships also, which can waive off your tuition fee. So this is something very different in US and Europe, and this is also something which makes more people to apply for US, because your tuition fee is waived off. But for example, if you are applying in Germany, then your tuition fee is also not there. So it's really about which university do you prefer, which program do you prefer, are you able to get teaching assistantships. How you get teaching assistantships is generally you write to the professors directly you want to work with. So this is something you have to do completely on your own. This is not something arranged by university in any way. So if you are interested, you will have to write to the professor that I'm really interested. I want to be a teaching or a research assistant. So generally, as I saw, they do not always give you this opportunity if you are a first year, sorry, if you'd see a first semester. So if you are just incoming, so there's a very high chance that nobody replies to you because you are an incoming student. But once you are in the university, there is a very high chance that you can get teaching assistantships as well. So this is one way to get your finances covered. There are also internship opportunities, but there are tricks with internships, because if you apply for internships, then you cannot, you can only apply for a summer internship for 3 months, or you can apply for an internship throughout the year. So there are some tricks there. So you have to be careful when you're applying for internships. So just, I would say definitely, if you are very sure you want to do this course, go for it. But do not apply for everything right away, because there are legal issues which comes up later, and this can really hinder you from taking good summer internship opportunities and so on. So really, please look into all these matters related to the country before you apply there. So that's quite important. There is something called international student, ISIC, I think it's called international student cards or something. So there are discounts which you get on multiple things. For example, you also become a part of, I can send a link to that. So these are some cheap tricks and tricks which you can use to save money here and there, but you will learn that when you are a student abroad anyways. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so I think one good takeaway is don't apply to internship casually. You
Mhm.
might be doing here in India, because people take internship very seriously outside.
Yes,
So, and also regarding the work hours, I think under the visa there is a limitation on the work hours on
exactly.
to work. Okay, so that's really nice. Okay, let's understand a little bit on the final context about profile building.
Mhm.
When again you come from IIT Bombay, but a lot of people don't come from
Mhm.
that. So, what's your take on how to build your profile if you're going for
Mhm.
your master's? What are the elements that someone should have on their resume or on the overall clarity, so that their profile uh, quantitatively is also there and qualitatively is also, in place. So, what are the things that someone should be able to prepare as an undergrad? Could be an engineering, could be a non-engineering student.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so there are multiple things. So when we think about profile for masters, usually people think that it has to be good grades, really good grades, and very good academic performance. I would say an average, at least an average academic performance is important, yes, for sure. But it's not always necessary. So I can really vouch for that fact because I didn't have amazing grades when I was graduating. So it's not only the grades which matter. So it is definitely a lot about if you are applying in that specific field, have you done a lot of, for example, if you're applying, let's say in I'm sorry, I'm going to give engineering example just because I know more about it, but you can always fit it in your own field. But for example, if you are a mechanical engineer applying for mechanical engineering masters, and if you have lower grades, I would say then show your extracurriculars which focus on how you gain more skills related to mechanical engineering. And when you're building a profile, it's very important that you start doing it right from your at least second year end or third year, because then you don't have enough time to have those activities done, or you need that clarity there. So if you are doing it later, then make sure that you are able to tell the right story which you want to also approach. For example, if you have done an internship in supply chain but you're applying for a mechanical engineering masters, I would say then choose those skills which you did there during your internship and really show how you use your mechanical engineering knowledge to to apply during those projects. So don't focus on the project in itself, but also try to show those exact skills. And this is very important to show in your motivation letters and also in your CV very clearly. So when you write your CVs, it's very important to describe these points very clearly. But as I also mentioned before, attending a lot of different types of competitions events does help. So for through that I got access to some new networks where I could start writing papers right in my bachelor's time. So it, I mean, obviously the papers were not very great, but I really got an experience in understanding how this is done, and this was something which was very much appreciated by the committee, because if as an undergraduate you are really already focusing on showing an interest in research, it helps. Taking up opportunities during summertime is obviously there. Like in summers, you can do internships. If you're really interested in applying, going abroad, then try it on doing research there. Then try to take research internships as well. Don't just go for industry internships. So um, but at the same time, if you are applying for a supply chain job, so a supply chain masters, then go for a company internship. So really choose what you want to apply for, and based on that try to get the opportunity accordingly. um, for the If I want to go back to entrepreneurship related, if you're applying for masters in entrepreneurship, then having a lot of interdisciplinary experiences help. So in entrepreneurship it's a bit different, because you can say that okay, I worked on this project, I worked on multiple projects and I could manage them. You can apply to multiple incubators and so for working with a startup and show your skills there. So don't shy away from applying to even small teams, because that also pays off. So as I mentioned, it really depends on what you want to build towards, that you will have to start building a network like that and applying those skills. And don't try to go away from your university and go even abroad. I mean, there are so many courses. Take up some courses. For example, if you're really interested in a skill to learn or you want to apply. For example, I didn't have any experience in coding, so I did a lot of Code Academy courses, and I went on Coursera, took some certifications. So this helps, for example. So this is something you could also try.
Okay. Interesting. So let's have a closing comments before we get on to the question answers. So any final tips for the students who are applying in pandemic or probably next year? Was that one thing that you feel that you should have also tried or tested, or you might have missed, and this is something others should not miss?
Hmm. Um, Yeah, I would say that as much as I talked about the other skills and other things which you should have, or the extra curriculars and so on, I would definitely say it is important to focus on your grades as well at the same time. I mean, this is something which is, um, I mean, if you're applying for masters, this is something which might come back at you, because right now, I mean, my master's grade were fine and which helped me in getting a PhD position. But I do get questioned if I apply. When I applied for a PhD, it was a thing to explain the grades back in my bachelor. So sometimes there are courses which you do not really enjoy, but do try to, because if you're applying for a master's, the final grade which you have will be something which will be at the top of your CV. And this is something, unfortunately, something which becomes the first thing to for the committee to choose whether you are in the accepted or non-accepted file. So I would say, if you do not have, for example, if you have electives, go for electives where you think it's possible that you can make up for the grades if they're not uh, compensating somewhere. But at the same time, I would not discourage anybody if you do not have great grades to go ahead as well. So this is something I didn't personally look into, and I think this is something I could have changed. So if I really have to go back, yeah, that's it.
Absolutely, yes. Grades do matter, though I come from a pretty much like a 70% background. Uh, if you have not a very high grades, the other things would definitely has to be good to compensate.
Exactly.
So definitely, guys, you have to work, balance it out. It's nothing like one on the extreme and others is not at all there. You need to balance out on some elements. Okay, so we are open to questions, guys, people. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Mm, any questions, people? Or else everything is so clear. That would be amazing. Don't shy away. The If you're gonna shy away, then it's you're making like yourself not getting your doubts cleared. I understand, like on a public forum, a lot of people face difficulties in asking questions. You can probably write to us personally also if you feel you don't want to share with others. But if you have any questions, do write because this is the opportunity for you. As I'm seeing on YouTube, there are a couple of questions that since we are live streaming on YouTube, there are
Okay.
roughly around 64 people, and that's why I was keep looking on the other side of the screen. So a
Okay.
lot of
Okay.
questions start coming in. So one question that I have from Devansh Bihani is currently he's in final semester of his economics masters. He's going to start his job from June onwards. Recently, he started becoming a little keen on MBA abroad, which definitely requires 3 to 4 years of work experience. So, what could be some of the things that you guys can recommend that would help me build my profile in the next 3 years so that I can end up in a good B school?
Hmm. Okay. It is an interesting question, because so I understand, like, he's doing masters in India, right?
Yep, Masters in
Yeah.
Economics.
Okay. So I definitely see it's highly possible. If you're doing a master's in economics, there is a very good link to doing an MBA for sure. So I would not say that you really always need. I mean, if you really are applying for a very big business B school, then maybe you really need an experience in the field where you're applying for. But it's not. I'm not an expert at MBA, but at the same time, I would give a disclaimer about it. But as far as I've seen from others, I think it is possible to apply even after 2 years of your master's for an MBA, because you do have a good background, and if you have worked towards it uh, in the industry which you aim for. So I think you can do it. I am sure you know about the different exams, and so you have to give for it. So I don't think so. This is something you will have to already start preparing for in your last year before you apply for, because they are not straightforward exams as well, like the GMAT. So this is something which is important to consider where you're applying. But the most important thing, which I completely missed while discussion, was the recommendation letters. So with your applications, it's very important that you work with the people. For example, if you are in industry or if you are doing your masters in economics, make sure you have a really good connection. You can ask for a recommendation letter, because the recommendation letters matter a lot, especially if you want a scholarship or something. And I think that is something which plays a very pivotal role in defining not just an acceptance, but whether you will get a scholarship. So I don't know how it works in the B schools, but at least in tech schools, it's very important for those recommendation letters. So how it can be like, what are the things it can look for?
Absolutely. I think letter of recommendation is really critical if you are applying even for a good B school. They do see, and sometimes they do even ask for your peers' recommendation, some of the
Mm-hmm.
B schools. So LOR is really good. Apart from that, I think volunteering activities are really good. They need to
Mm-hmm.
understand how much of socially involving you are as a person. And then personal projects or company projects, whichever you're working, you have to be excelling there. So there need to be peaks in your profile, maybe 2 or 3 peaks in those 2 or 3 years. There has to be peaks. At the same time, they would want to see you working hard on your own self. So you can probably pick up certain certifications if that's something you are planning to go in finance or even in marketing. You can probably upskill yourself if the job doesn't give you a lot of opportunities on that. So that's something you need to do on a personal front. Okay, so one question that we have here is, how can I get a strong essay on college application? So yes, college application essay becomes always a black box for a lot of people. So how did you manage your college application essay, and what are the things in an essay one should look at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the first thing to know about a good essay is that it has to be a very strong story of, like, it is your story at the end, like why it's a motivation of why you want to apply to that specific course. So the most important things you have to show is, I think, in 3 steps. That first of all, what is your experience in that field? So you can show that through multiple, let's say, research assistantships you have done or internships you have done. How do you, if you're applying for a specific master's, let's say in energy, like, have you worked in your during your undergrad on those specific topics or related to their specific topics, which will help you to work in that master's, or which will give you a background. So you have to show that you have a relevant background, not just through your bachelor's, but whatever experience you had. The next thing is, I think you have to show, as also Nikhil just said, that how did you excel at any of them? If you excelled at any of them, like, you have to really show, for example, if you did a master thesis, a thesis, a project, or a longer project, or a research project, if you got a good grade there, or if you were like, if you got during the internship, you got some form of a recognition or something, or you could really build something new. So you have to really show those achievements very clearly in the letter as well. And I think at the end, you have to also show that, because you will be working in a completely new setting, in a completely new country, in for a much more pressured, like, because masters is always a lot of pressure. So how, as a person, are you able to combat on all these things? Are you able to manage multiple projects, multiple assignments together? Have you done that before? So you have to also give your personal traits and personal growth and learning there, to show that very clearly that you are able to this can be just the last part of it, but you need to show that, especially if you're coming from a different background, or if you're coming from a new country to another country. If you have I mean, do mention if you have traveled or if you have seen that background and culture, that yes, I'm ready to do that, experience that. So I think these three elements, the experience, achievements, and your personal um, growth, background, and so on, really matters to. I mean, it is kind of a CV, but explaining the very relevant point of the CV from the CV, pick those up and really explain them well.
Okay. So one interesting question that I've received on a personal chat is a student is doing bachelor's from Delhi University in economics and history, and
Hmm.
the student is interested in stock market as well as women empowerment, especially against
Hmm.
patriarchy. Okay.
Hmm.
She wants to apply for masters in UK, and she's confused that whether she should go for two masters, first in stock market and then towards social impact, or is there any particular masters like what's your career suggestion if you want to
Hmm.
have two totally
Hmm.
different fields?
Yeah. So I did do masters, for sure. I did a data science and a policy, which were completely like everybody would ask me how does these two go together, and so I understand. It really depends, but I would not recommend doing two masters, to be honest, because I was not clear to do the two masters when before applying. Now, if you're already very clear that okay, I want to do something related to stock market and I really want to work something on women empowerment, so you have to start seeing the links. So because let's look at it in the future perspective. If you are really working on it in the future, how are you going to? You are not going to have two jobs, right? I mean, maybe you can do something in stock market as a main job and women empowerment as a secondary volunteering option or something like that, but it could just create a lot of stress generally. So I would recommend that there, first of all, what you could see, start looking at is where are the links. For example, one link comes in my mind, something related to what if there is it could be again an entrepreneurial experience where you are trying to make products which are also empowering. I don't know, I'm just making up things here, but which are also empowering for um, minorities in a way. For example, you make a platform where only women can trade. I don't know if you can do that. So why not? So if you start seeing where are the links, and then for these links, if you want to achieve this, which are the skills you need to build those links, which are the skills, because that will put you as a very unique asset in the market, if I can say it like that. So where companies would be really interested to hire you. If you do not see things like that as well, yeah, so if you do not see such links at all, then what you could do is do something like, if you apply for something like masters in finance, I would suggest, if it's a stock market thing, then you could do an honors or a minor in related to social studies. So this is something which is always an option. For example, when I was in TU Delft, I did an honors in open data and open governments at the same time, because I just wanted to understand what is government design like. But I was not very sure if I wanted to take it up. And then it's an additional course load which you take, which is not a complete master's. And from there, you can decide that if you're very interested for it, do I want to, after being in the university, do I want to apply for a second master at the same time? Because the course load or the workload for two masters is very much, and I would not recommend doing that together. You could do it sequentially, or you could do it like in a span of 3 to 3.5 years, maybe. But together would be difficult. So maybe taking a minor and an honor wise approach would help a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just for all the aspiring entrepreneurs, we already got a great business idea, women only trading platform. And trust me, this could work because when Bumble went for an IPO,
Mm,
so which was a women first dating website.
yeah.
The women only trading platform could be a killer idea because a
Yeah.
lot of women are not very much into finances. They are still
Mm,
learning about it. You can educate them with
mm-hmm.
your skills, and you can create a more socially protected platform for them to trade and to have more women to women conversations about their trading understanding. So
Yeah,
that could be a
definitely.
brilliant business idea if you want to try it out. So do give it a
Yeah.
shot. Do plan maybe a business model canvas on this and
Yeah.
showcase
And send
it
it to
to
us.
potential investors. Yeah, you can always do that. Get the feedbacks, and probably if you do it, get back to me. I'll definitely help you out. I know a lot of fintech guys into big spaces from Razorpay to anyone. I'll probably get your ideas. And yes, one good thing is Zerodha also funds such startups. If you have a startup in this space, Zerodha being the billion-dollar bootstrap venture, they have a funding arm which funds education-based fintech startups. So yes, this is
Mhm.
something. If you have built something, if you want to build on something, build this, take it to Zerodha. They might fund you because this looks like a killer idea. So definitely you're gonna start and try and test it. At least if you don't, succeed, you will learn out of an experience, and that
Yeah.
is also one of the things that even a top university would look into your profile. That what have you learned out of the experiences that you tried with. So yes, with this we come to an end. Any final questions you guys have? Feel free to ask. Else we're gonna close the session. Okay, I think this is it. Thanks, Rhythima. Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you.
joining in. It was amazing to have you on the session again. And I feel more women entrepreneurs, at least one startup could come out of this session, and we should be definitely proud of it.
Yeah.
That we could at least facilitate at least one idea. And
Mm.
thanks for the session. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. And yes, this session is on YouTube. If you or your friends kind of miss it, do share the YouTube URL. Probably I'm gonna share this here in the chat, or else you can go to the ForeignAdmits website or the YouTube channel, and you can find this session live. Yes. Thank you everyone for coming out of the weekend. Thank you, Rhythm, again. See
Thanks a
you.
lot. Yeah.